Good day, mates. My name is Mordecai, and welcome back to the show, where an aspiring roleplayer narrates various RPG-related stories as a learning tool. I am speaking through my familiar Aquata for this narration. Sometimes, when a party is formed for a campaign, it can be a considerable struggle to get the party to begin interacting with the world. Usually in a session 0, the players will draft up a brief or full backstory in conjunction with the DM, providing possible plot hooks and roleplay opportunities, often with non-playable characters used by the Game Master to create the world in which the player characters live and interact. An issue that can crop up is when you have players seize up in their efforts to interact with the inhabitants of the tabletop world being portrayed. This can happen for a number of reasons, varying from players being unsure how to progress or being nervous at the table. When this happens, the DM may need to intervene by providing an NPC to act as some form of party guide. And whilst this can be in the form of a person who gives the party their initial quest, you sometimes run into a DMPC. DMPCs, or Dungeon Master Player Characters, are often dreaded for a number of reasons, and thus we have to ask, what are the problems that the Dungeon Master's Mary Sue caused for the original poster in today's story? Let's find out as we embark on another delve. Before we begin with today's story, if you like my content and want to see more, feel free to subscribe and like the video. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Plus, you can always change your mind at a later date. Let's delve into the often terrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Today's narrative is titled Fought One of the DM's DMPCs, and learned how OP they were, and is written by Blue Cat Studios. I hope making a post like this doesn't reflect too poorly on me, but here I go. I had settled into the role of Forever DM on a West Marches server I was running for a few months, but the overarching plot concluded, and I headed to a new West Marches server to play as a player for a while alongside my other players and learn about other DMing styles up front. The server was low fatality, and PCs were easily resurrected, so it was a rather laid-back environment to play casually. One of the admins was the most active DM on the server, and he instantly pulled me in by immediately digging into my character's backstory, which is a weak spot in my DMing, and showing some impressive control over pacing and handling rules lawyering that the other players endorsed. I had such a blast playing Dungeons & Dragons as a player with my friends that I was willing to roll with whatever happened in the beginning. I'd gotten accents down for both of the characters, and the DM seemed to genuinely enjoy my enthusiasm in role-playing various scenarios that popped up. Smash cut to a few sessions in when I'd leveled up one of my player characters to 9 and another, since you could have multiple in that server, to 7. In that time, I was starting to get frustrated. What had started as a strong NPC guiding us to a quest, and a strong NPC being a non-combat encounter in a horror-themed session, became a strong NPC guiding us on every mission, and at least one strong NPC presenting a neutral or hostile presence in each session. The frustration stemmed from the understanding that we weren't supposed to attack these NPCs. They were implied to be too strong, combined with the way that they treated the party. They usually insulted the party, talking down to them. Some actually spent 3 to 5 minutes of game time berating and belittling us. On more than one occasion, the NPCs would cast spells on us to assert dominance. It began as a way to show that the characters were not meant to be fought, but at one point when role-playing, one of them did it because my character was simply talking too much, which consisted of about 3 sentences. As a side note, a bit more than half of them were ladies, and the art introducing the ladies was always at least borderline risque for some reason. Smash cut to the boiling point. The party and my 7th level PC went to figure out why people were having trouble sleeping. We had found some runes carved in their homes that were doing some obviously cursed stuff. A cleric removed some of these rooms with our help, and we woke up the next morning to find out that the cleric was dead, and that someone was in the church. We enter and we find that it's a dark cloaked figure. Boom. All of the doors and windows were magically shut. One of our players tried to break through one of those windows to just nope out of there, but they ended up taking 3d6 bludgeoning damage. We learned that the edgy NPC is a super duper serious assassin, top caliber, an edgelord, who had the same task of killing this rune carver as we did, so he offered to let us watch. We follow him into a cave and he clearly demonstrates his powers are derived from shadows. He kills the rune carver with one attack, in a cutscene, completely outside of initiative. Someone in the party uses telepathy to talk to the rest of us. Do you think this guy might be dangerous to society? He might be. We should take him down. We led him into the open sunlight, where his powers would be weakest and he couldn't take advantage of shadows. Alright, everyone make a deception check! But we're all saying this telepathically, so he can't hear us. Yeah, but you need to roll to not give it away with your facial expressions. Of the group of 5 characters, one of our players rolled low enough to fail. The Edgelord Supreme approached them and began to question them. It was at that point that my character broadsided him with a Chaos Bolt from a 6th level spell slot, starting a fight with this DMPC. Winning initiative, I managed to get in an additional attack. Another player had a feature that boosted their player character's initiative above the edgelords, and they actually had to argue with the DM in order to use those rules as written. They volleyed the edgelord with additional damage, but then the edgelord got their turn. He used a power to transport anywhere where there was a shadow, teleporting behind my PC. But we're in a sunny field. There's no shadows here. It still takes effect. Let's pause the story for a moment to talk about Dungeon Master player characters, and the reason why the phrase DMPC fills the average player with an unrivaled sense of pure dread. It's because the term itself is associated with exactly this iteration of NPC, the kind that are used to drive the Dungeon Master's plot forward at the expense of everything else. Now, sometimes DMPCs are used responsibly, being party support characters, retainers for player characters, or as a player-initiated plot hook out of curiosity, to name a few examples. The main issue with this is that the phrase DMPC can mean either the party support NPC, or the universally dreaded non-player characters such as Edgelord here. Thus, on this show, I shall refer to the latter category of DMPC as the DMMS, the Dungeon Master Mary Sue. And one of the important traits of the Dungeon Master Mary Sue is their capacity to just completely steal the spotlight, as Edgelord is doing here. So let's resume the narration to see where the Dungeon Master Mary Sue completely derails the story off the edge of a cliff. The Edgelord proceeds to make a total of 4 attacks. He gets advantage on all of them because my character, which initiated combat with an opening attack and one initiative for an additional attack, apparently hadn't taken a turn yet. So the assassin was thus granted their advantage. The DM rolls all 4 of the attacks. 2 of them got natural 20s. And as he rolled all of the damage dice together, your character is now dead! The Edgelord then casts Animate Dead. My character rises. He isn't a zombie or a skeleton, but is a 7th level PC. Attack the rest of the party! The DM really wanted me to roleplay my insta-killed character to PvP the rest of the party in what could easily be a total party wipeout. I am a bit salty by now, and past the point of ever wanting to play again, so I conjure a bomb using minor conjuration. It sounds impressive, but takes 2 actions and puts out low damage compared to any of my other spells. The Edgelord then kills the player character I had called out as a target of the bomb attack. She is then raised from the dead as well. My zombified character throws the bomb at her. You can't! He was ordered to attack the rest of the party. He had no orders to stop attacking them if they were raised from the dead. Doesn't matter, you can't do it anyways! The Edgelord then proceeds to use a legendary action to drink a superior healing potion, which convinces the party to surrender. They are now witnesses to his crime, and have sufficient reason to find and kill him when they are more powerful. The Edgelord for the moment, however, settles for just those 2 kills, and produces a spell scroll for teleportation, and leaves with the bodies of both of the zombified PCs, preventing their resurrection. I left the server afterwards without a public explanation, and I got various messages asking why from the other DMs there. I explained it to a couple of people, and apparently this particular DM had actually pulled stuff like this before, and it was apparently a known problem that they just tolerate for some reason. Someone please do me a favor and assign a challenge rating to this DMPC based on the described abilities. I want to say CR 25, because they have a total of 4 attacks, they're an assassin with shadow powers, and access to 7th level spells. But I have a major conflict of interest, so I'm prone to estimating it to be rather high. In summary, a DMPC pulled a "teleports behind you, nothing personal" on my character. And that's where the story ends. So, let's talk about the nature of the Dungeon Master Mary Sue trope. These are characters that are designed to be far more powerful than the actual player characters that the campaign is meant to be about, with some of the most notorious individuals being nigh invincible and able to command ridiculous power over the entire game. From being able to overwhelm the party on a whim, to controlling the storyline through their mere presence, they certainly take up the mantle of being a paper-thin Mary Sue upon any close examination. Edgelord here is, unfortunately, one of the less powerful Dungeon Master Mary Sues in the history of RPGHorrorStories. Additionally, I am inclined to honestly believe that the main DM for this Westmarcher server intended for Edgelord to never be fought by any of the players at any point. Especially since when the party did try to fight the DMMS, they were met with more than a little overwhelming force. To talk about my earlier statement in the intermission, not all Dungeon Master player characters that become party members are Dungeon Master Mary Sues. In the last arc of Critical Role's second campaign, Essek Phaelus was brought into the party as an NPC ally as the Mighty Nine traversed towards their main final goal for the campaign, and Essek provides a good example on how to use a Dungeon Master player character. He's brought in as support on the party's request, the party has a genuine investment in the character, and he doesn't make any big decisions for where the party should go or what they should do. And there's also the fact that Essek is an NPC that is established as a likeable character. Now, when we compare Essek to the Edgelord in the story, it's pretty clear why Edgelord is an example of a bad DMPC, and thus being a Dungeon Master Mary Sue. So, what lessons can we take away from this story? For me, the main lesson that arises from this analysis is that not all Dungeon Master player characters are inherently awful, but we should be careful not to convert a Dungeon Master player character into a dreaded Dungeon Master Mary Sue. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed my content and would like to see more, feel free to subscribe and give the video a like. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Plus, you can always change your mind at a later date. Thank you again for watching, and I shall see you all next time.